Chapter 24. Under Elven Eyes. H. Haldor drew the sharpening stone down his blade in slow, deliberate strokes, each motion matched to the rhythm of his breath. In, out, grit, slide. The steel sang quietly in the woods, a language only he and the blade shared. He liked to think they were of one mind in these moments. Calm, focused, inevitable. Ghalen's footsteps broke the rhythm. Back and forth, again. The soft sound of boots on the forest floor. Haldor didn't look up. He didn't need to. He could feel the storm gathering in the other man's movements, restless, faster with each pass. There'd be no stopping him soon. Things were about to get complicated. Grit, slide. The glade beamed. Then, the inevitable.
Enough! I need to see what they're up to. It's not safe to be separated here. Have they no sense?
Haldor exhaled, slid the blade into its sheath, and stood. There was no point in arguing. Not when Ghalen was like this. They hurried toward the hill. As they came over the edge, an unsettling emptiness met them.
Fina!
Narrated!
Their voices echoed in the stillness. Ghalen looked around fervently.
Something was wrong with Narrated earlier. What did the raven tell her?
He mumbled. He turned to Haldor.
Should we spread...
A voice, cold and authoritative, resounded from the forest shadows. By decree of the council in the Sunwoods, you are to be taken into custody and presented before them. Lay down your arms or be subdued. In an instant, the cold steel of a blade pressed against Galen's neck. Haldor reacted. His sword struck away the enemy's blade, forcing the figure threatening Ghalen to backpedal into a defensive posture. 3 elves emerged, their presence ghostly. They stood tall, dressed in gleaming silver plate armor adorned with winged helmets. Blue veils obscured their faces. Haldor sized them up, 2 men and 1 woman. 5 more elves entered from the trees, moving with fluid precision as they took positions around Ghalen and Haldor. They looked distinctively different. Their red and black armor was finer, more decorative, polished to a mere shine. Long crests curled back from their helms, black raven emblems on their shoulders, and their blades, though present, hung at their sides with a kind of disuse that spoke more of tradition than readiness. Their eyes didn't flicker with tension, only calm expectation, as if the outcome had already been decided.
I see no weak ones here, Ghalen,
he muttered, assessing the challenge ahead. Lay down your arms, trespassers! You are outmatched, commanded the tallest of the elves. He had golden hair down to his waist, striking green eyes, and a massive greatsword strapped to his back. You will be brought along with the other captives to the council.
Fina,
Ghalen asked, reaching out toward the elf.
did you capture our priestess?
In a swift motion, the elf darted to his side and struck him with an elbow to the chest. Ghalen crumbled to the ground, gasping for air. The wind knocked out of him. Haldor grit his teeth, lunging with lethal precision. Another elf met him, their blades singing as they clashed. The blonde elf's head snapped toward the fight, startled by the ringing of steel. Stand down, Leorin! As Haldor took a few steps back to reposition, the defending elf eyed the blonde one warily. Tantus defindum imperatos. The blonde elf signaled to the others to fall back. I'll handle this. Stand down. Without hesitation, the other elves sheathed their weapons. Haldor flourished his sword, pacing a few steps left, then right, measuring the distance between them. Last warning, human, Elion cautioned. We have no desire to harm you further, but I warn you, here, your blade is of little use. Haldor's gaze briefly settled on Ghalen, whose breath was still labored. Resolved, Haldor responded with a desperate gamble, hoping the elf would be arrogant enough to give him an opening.
Little use. With or without your magic, I will stand against you. You are lucky to have it, elf. Otherwise, I'd cut you all down in a heartbeat.
The elf blinked, taken aback, then a slow, humorless smile spread across his face. You truly think you could win, he said quietly. Let's test that, shall we? He covered his face and secured his helmet before unsheathing his long blade. Its hilt shimmered gold in the dappled sunlight. Haldor noted his strong stance. It was impressive. But this wasn't the moment for admiration. He looked down at Ghalen, still gasping for air on the ground. Ghalen might be able to talk his way out of this, but Haldor knew he couldn't. He had a clear, desperate plan. If this elf was arrogant enough to offer him a fair fight, he could buy Ghalen time to recover. And if Haldor died in the process, so be it. Steel met steel as they clashed. Haldor's sword swung down in a powerful arc, only to be deftly parred by his opponent. They moved in a deadly dance, blades flashing and twirling. Haldor unleashed a series of rapid thrusts, each one blocked or evaded by the elf with graceful precision. The elf retaliated with a flurry of his own, pushing Haldor back with the sheer force of his strikes. The ground beneath them became a blur as they moved, neither gaining a clear advantage. Their blades sang in harmony. Haldor feinted left and struck right, almost catching the elf off guard, but he recovered swiftly, countering with a spinning move that forced Haldor to duck and roll to avoid a potentially fatal blow. Dust rose around them as they continued their relentless duel. Every strike, every parry was executed with precision and skill. Sweat dripped from their brows, and their breaths grew heavier. But neither showed any signs of yielding. Haldor noticed his opponent was smiling. After a fierce exchange that felt like hours, though it might have been mere minutes, Haldor confronted a bitter reality. This was the most formidable opponent he'd ever faced. He might concede that he considered himself the greatest living swordsman if pressed. Yet, here before him stood an equal. Launching himself forward, Haldor feinted a strike, then ducked, swiftly positioning himself behind the elf. Haldor hurled his shield as he spun. The elf managed to deflect it, but the split-second distraction was enough. Haldor lunged, bringing him down and wresting the blade from the elf's grasp. With a cry, Haldor drew his sword back, its arched poised to strike down on Elion's bracer. The force behind the blow could sever the limb.
Well fought,
he silently acknowledged. Enough! The elf's voice echoed with an authority that should have been heeded, but Haldor's resolve did not waver. As he swung his blade down, he noticed the elf raise his wrist defensively, a futile gesture. Yet, when his sword met the modest bracer of the elf's arm, instead of slicing through, it was repelled with a force that nearly caused the sword to slip from Haldor's grasp. Recoiling from the unexpected resistance, Haldor found himself staggered, his momentum carrying him several paces backwards. The elf, standing with grace as if their previous battle had never been fought, was on his feet in an instant, his sword once more aimed at Haldor. You've shown yourself to be a formidable fighter, human. Perhaps the best of your kind, he acknowledged. But this ends now. Sheathe your blade. Haldor looked towards Ghalen again. He had vomited on the ground, and was in no shape to get up yet. Haldor lunged forward again, now lacking the protection of his shield. As he battled on, a realization dawned upon him. This elf was an augmenter, like Lytheria. Some sacred magic had shielded him, much like Lytheria in the pit. The elf had not let his pride dictate his demise, but Haldor was unwavering in his decision. He would either be the last one standing or die in the attempt. Yet, each time their blades connected, Haldor was repulsed, thrown off balance. Stabilizing himself after another powerful deflection, he felt a warm wetness seeping down his side. He wasn't just sweating. He was bleeding.
Light forsake me,
Haldor thought bitterly.
Is this where my journey ends, Elena?
He tightened his grip on the sword, readying himself for one final strike. But before he could swing, a voice rang out, clear, commanding, and familiar. Stop! Stand down! Lytheria's voice cut through the air like a bell. She stepped forward, speaking in Elvish. The syllables flowed like music, each word carrying weight beyond its sound. Thasini imperator de tenibus soli gratina excidi imperatos Ilion. The reaction was instant. The warrior elves froze as if caught between memory and duty. Eyes widened. The blonde elf,
Had she called him Elion?
Stared at her as though seeing a ghost. His grip loosened on his sword. Then, as one, the three warriors dropped down to one knee, their right fists striking the earth in solemn unison. They chanted, almost reverently, Pro aurore, fractoai, morimu. But the other five did not kneel. They remained standing, weapons still at the ready. For a heartbeat, they seemed caught between conflicting impulses until something shifted in their stances. Their eyes met in quick, silent exchanges. Whatever eternal struggle had held them frozen resolved itself in that moment. The instant Lytheria's voice fell silent, the 5 remaining elves moved with horrifying synchronicity. Their hands blurred, drawing silver blades that caught the light like razor-edged mirrors. "Elion!" Lytheria called, and then chaos unfurled. The 3 kneeling warriors were caught vulnerable. From his vantage point, Haldor watched the deadly precision of the attack, movements calculated and cold, striking at those who had shown reverence. One of the warriors took a blade between the shoulders before he could rise. The blonde elf reacted the fastest. Despite being on one knee, he moved with a fluid grace. His massive 2-handed blade swept upward in a gleaming arc, creating a momentary shield of steel that intercepted the first wave of attacks. The clash of metal rang out like thunderclaps, sharp and brutal. The stabbed kneeling elf collapsed from his wounds. The other rolled away, dark hair whirling as she came up with her shield raised, a burst of golden light crackling along its surface. Waves of light exploded around them, fierce and retributive. The blonde elf was a whirlwind of motion. His massive blade, which should have been unwieldy, moved with impossible speed. Bright energy trailed from the blade's edge, transforming each strike into something more than a mere physical attack. The attackers were skilled, moving with coordinated precision. They attacked in waves, never allowing the defenders a moment's respite. One struck high, and another darted in low, their movements perfectly synchronized. Lytheria burst into the fight, but Haldor could see her face growing pale. The sickness was taking hold, and her movements were sluggish. He could only watch, his hands clenched into fists, his breath shallow. He understood nothing of the elvish words shouted back and forth, but he understood violence, and what he was witnessing was a dance of death. Arcs of light forced him to shield his eyes as blades clashed. The difference in skill was evident to Haldor. The warriors on Lytheria's side were experienced, their stances precise, their formations airtight, even when outnumbered. The red-armored attackers were quick and effective, but they had begun to panic now that their assassination attempt had failed. Though her movements were sluggish compared to when she had fought Haldor back in Ilskar, Lytheria held her own. The clash of steel rang out in bursts, each sharper than the last. One of the red-armored assassins crumpled with a gurgled cry, his blade skittering across the forest floor. Another fell moments later, struck down mid-lunge by a precise thrust through the throat. Haldor watched as Lytheria's elves moved in perfect synchrony, each motion fluid, deliberate, and deadly. Despite their numbers, the assassins were losing ground, forced back step by step until only 2 remained. A sharp whistle split the air. Lytheria signaling. One elf broke formation to intercept one of the last assassins attempting to flee. There was no scream, only the dull thud of a body hitting the earth. The final assassin, cornered and disarmed, dropped to his knees, breathing hard, blood trailing from a wound at his side. His helmet had been torn away, revealing a sharp face twisted in desperation. The elven warriors encircled him, weapons drawn, but held steady. They began to speak in their language, sharp, quick phrases that echoed with authority and disdain. Lytheria stepped forward, her expression unreadable, and said something that made the prisoner flinch. Haldor stood on the edge of the scene, unable to move, unable to help. The elvish words were meaningless to him, but their tone wasn't. It was an interrogation, merciless and cold. As the interrogated elf said a few deliberate words, he threw his hands in the air and started shaking his head. Elion spun around, whirling his blade, decapitating the man. For a moment, there was silence in the forest. Haldor helped Ghalen to his feet. He looked battered. It must have been a hard blow from that elf before.
What did he say? What is happening?
Ghalen asked. Breath ragged. Lytheria took a step towards them, her face pale. We asked for his orders.
And?
Haldor asked. In the event I was found alive, they were to kill me and Elion, then return to Ravemark. Haldor felt nauseous. One faction of the all-powerful elves was now out to kill the other, and he was stuck right in the middle. Things were complicated, all right. The elves ushered Ghalen and Haldor to one edge of the forest glade, and the sense of calm settled once again around them as the elves bandaged their wounds with practiced discipline. The one who had been stabbed did not appear to be fatally injured. Once the situation was stable, the elves turned their eyes to Lytheria, between awe and disbelief, as if they were seeing a ghost or an angel. The conversation among the elves continued as a newly patched-up soldier began bombarding Lytheria with questions, casting accusatory glances at both Ghalen and Haldor. The words blurred in Haldor's mind. He looked down at his own wound and determined the cut on his arm was shallow. After his initial astonishment at the elves, he exchanged a knowing glance with Ghalen. They shared a silent understanding. With deliberate intent, Ghalen cleared his throat loudly, cutting through the ongoing chatter. All eyes turned to him.
I'm sorry, Lytheria,
he said,
but these elves said they captured Fina. I need to know where they took her.
The golden-haired elf responded in fluent common, though his accent was noticeable. You dare demand anything from our commander! Remember your place when addressing her, human! Lytheria gestured for him to stand down. They are not the enemies, Elion. We traveled together. Did you capture the others? Her gaze drifted to the road beyond. Yes, Commander, Elion admitted. They were taken and are now being brought to the Council for judgment. Ravemark's guards insisted on handling them personally. Now I see why. I fear their punishment may be severe. Lytheria's eyes narrowed. Ravemark. That serpent must face judgment. Lytheria, Elion began. We must tread carefully. A member of the council has betrayed us. Before she could respond, Galen's voice sharpened into a growl.
You will release my friends!
He clasped the hilt of his blade. Enough! We are not enemies, Lytheria declared. Elion gripped his weapon, his gaze wary as he measured the humans. If you raise a hand against my commander, I will see it swiftly removed. Lytheria took a few unsteady steps. She looked pale. Attempting to steady herself, she lifted a hand toward Elion. No more fighting. I won't have you fight. Her voice trailed off as her legs gave way. Elion, abandoning both his sword and helmet, rushed forward to catch her. Lytheria, my light, are you well? Her green eyes dulled to a watery blue, and her moans were filled with agony. Grasping her chest, she struggled to breathe. Were you hurt in the battle? Elion asked. As if on cue, the elves unsheathed their weapons, forming a protective barrier around their fallen commander. Elion lifted Lytheria's shirt, reaching for an injury but found none. Ghalen spoke with a bite in his voice.
It is no physical wound. She was stabbed from, what did she say? A domination blade.
Ghalen said, hurriedly unraveling some bandages to attend to Haldor.
Inflicted by Ravemark.
Haldor winced, trying to suppress a grimace from Galen's inexpert hands as he fumbled with the bandage. Exchanging uneasy glances, the elves seemed unconvinced. With a note of desperation, Ghalen pressed on.
She needs your help or the fever will claim her. She's been our ally for a long time. I cannot simply stand and watch her die. Use your sun magic.
Elion only frowned down at her. He retorted, We are warriors, human, not healers. Our abilities don't extend to healing arts. We must take her to Gianna, but that's half a day's ride from here.
She won't last that long,
Haldor interjected with a grunt. The elves paused in their movement. Without turning to face him, Elion asked, How can you be certain? Haldor kept his face an impassive mask.
Fina, our healer, warned us. Once the fever takes hold, she has mere hours. But if you act fast, Fina might still save her.
Elion exchanged anxious glances with his elven comrades, and they launched into a fervent discussion in their native tongue. To Haldor, it appeared as if the elves were debating their trustworthiness. He cut in.
You must move swiftly. Just bring her here. If we did not speak the truth, you only lost a few minutes of our capture.
One of the elves cautiously reminded Elion. My lord, even if we wish to assist Lytheria, your commands don't hold sway over the council's directives. We've sworn loyalty to you, but the gods accompanying the human healer are under the council's charge. They won't release her so easily. Ilion's shoulders sagged, and he looked to the sky. I will get her. They will heed my order, willingly or not. He locked eyes with his soldiers. I trust these humans as much as a mouse trusts a cat. Keep her safe and wait my return. The elven guards saluted. Turning to the humans, Ilion's voice was stern. I will bring back your healer. She had better be able to help. If not, you will all face my fury. He disappeared into the forest, moving with an otherworldly speed.